There is an addiction no one wants to admit. An addiction that leaves no visible marks on the body, doesn't show up in blood tests, yet corrodes the soul from the inside until nothing is left. Have you ever felt that inexplicable emptiness after doing exactly what your body asked for? That feeling that, no matter how much pleasure you seek, it's never enough? That every time you need more, something different, something new, but the satisfaction lasts less and less? This is the symptom of a silent disease that is destroying millions of men right now. They wake up, work, talk, smile, but inside they're dead. Emotional zombies who have lost the ability to feel true love, to genuinely connect with another person, to build something that truly matters. And the scariest part? Most don't even realize they're sick. Lust is not just sexual desire. It's a mental trap that turns men into slaves of their own impulses. It's the illusion that you are in control when, in reality, you're being controlled. Think about how many decisions you've made based purely on desire. How many times have you chosen the wrong woman because she awakened something primal in you? How many real opportunities for connection have you ignored because you were blind, chasing only the next dose of dopamine? Uncontrolled desire works exactly like a chemical drug in the brain. When you see something that triggers your sexual appetite, your brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and reward. At that moment, your rational mind shuts off. You're no longer thinking about consequences, values, or who you want to be. You're operating on autopilot, like an animal following basic instincts. And here's the problem: the more you feed that circuit, the stronger it becomes. Modern neuroscience has already proven that constant exposure to sexual stimuli rewires the brain. Your reward system becomes desensitized. What used to satisfy you no longer works. You need more intense, more frequent, more extreme stimuli. It's exactly the same mechanism as any addiction, increasing tolerance and dependence. You're no longer seeking pleasure, you're trying to escape the discomfort of not having it. But the destruction goes beyond brain chemistry. Lust completely distorts your perception of reality. When you look at a woman through the lens of uncontrolled desire, you don't see a person. You see an object, a fantasy, a possibility for gratification. Your eyes scan her body, your fantasies create scenarios, and your mind has already decided that this is what you need. In that process, you completely lose the ability to recognize character, compatibility, values, shared purpose. How many failed relationships started exactly this way? You met someone who sparked strong physical attraction, and your mind built an entire narrative about who that person was. You ignored clear signs of incompatibility because desire screamed louder than reason. Months later, when the sexual chemistry faded, you woke up next to a stranger and asked yourself, "How did I end up here?" The brutal truth is that lust prevents you from loving. True love requires you to see the other person as they really are, not as a projection of your desires. It requires patience, vulnerability, commitment, mutual growth. But how can you offer that when you're trapped in a cycle of seeking instant gratification? How can you build real intimacy when your mind is constantly wandering, searching for the next stimulus? Here's something no one tells you: you can be surrounded by people and still be completely alone. You can have multiple sexual partners and never experience true intimacy. You can feel intense physical pleasure and still be emotionally empty. Because lust doesn't fill, it empties. Every time you give in to impulse without awareness, you lose a piece of yourself. The worst part is that this cycle creates a perfect psychological trap. The more you seek pleasure to fill the void, the emptier you feel. The more you objectify others, the more isolated you become. The more you feed desire, the hungrier you grow. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It seems like it will help, but it only makes things worse. And there's another devastating aspect. Lust steals your vital energy. That energy that should be channeled into building your career, developing your talents, pursuing your dreams. It's being wasted on sterile fantasies and empty pursuits. You spend hours scrolling through social media, consuming sexual content, fantasizing about conquests that never materialize, or that materialize only to leave you even more frustrated. Think about the irony. You think you're exercising your masculinity, your freedom, your power, but in reality, you're being controlled like a puppet. Your impulses decide how you spend your time, your energy, your money. Your desires determine your relationship choices. Your dependence on sexual stimuli controls your mood, your self-esteem, your ability to focus. Modern society has turned this into normality. Hypersexualization is everywhere: social media, advertising, entertainment, casual conversation. You are constantly bombarded with stimuli designed specifically to activate your reward system. And when you react to those stimuli, when you click, when you search, when you consume, they tell you it's natural, healthy, liberating. But look around you. Look at the men who live completely surrendered to this lifestyle. Do they look happy? Do they look fulfilled? Or do you see frustration disguised as cynicism, emptiness masked as indifference, despair hidden behind bravado? Here's the central truth that must be understood: lust isn't just about sex. It's about a way of relating to the world where you're always taking, never giving. Always consuming, never building. Always chasing the next hit of pleasure, never investing in something that truly matters. If you're enjoying this reflection and want to understand how to escape this trap, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. What comes next will completely change your perspective on masculinity, relationships, and what it really means to be free. When you finally recognize that you have a problem, the first reaction isn't relief, it's terror. Because you realize you've spent years, maybe decades, building your identity on a lie. Everything you believed about yourself, about what made you a man, about what gave you value, was built on quicksand. The truth is that lust doesn't just destroy your ability to love others, it destroys your ability to love yourself. Every time you act against your own values, every time you choose impulse over integrity, you lose a little respect for who you are. And this process happens so gradually that you don't even notice until you're completely disconnected from yourself. You begin to live in constant inner contradiction. In the morning, you promise you'll change, that you'll have discipline, that you'll focus on what really matters. By the afternoon, the first temptation appears, and you give in immediately. At night, you're drowning in guilt and shame, swearing that tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow never is. Because you haven't yet understood that you're not fighting against desire itself, you're fighting against years of mental conditioning. Your brain has been trained to seek immediate reward. It's been trained to associate emotional relief with sexual gratification. It's been trained to believe that your masculinity depends on your ability to conquer, possess, consume. Undoing that conditioning doesn't happen through willpower. It happens through radical awareness and a deep transformation in how you process reality. Here's where most men fail. They try to stop the behavior without changing the mindset. They think it's enough to resist the impulse, to just say no when temptation arises. But resistance without transformation is only temporary suppression. The desire remains, growing in the shadows, building pressure, until it explodes with even greater force. True abstinence isn't just physical. It's mental, emotional, spiritual. It means stopping the feeding of fantasies. It means no longer consuming content that activates your reward system. It means stopping the use of women as objects in your thoughts, even when no one is watching. It means facing the emptiness you were trying to fill with empty pleasure. And when you do that, when you truly stop feeding the monster, something extraordinary happens. In the first days, it's pure hell. Your mind enters withdrawal mode, like any addict quitting a drug. You feel anxiety, irritation, restlessness. Your brain begs for dopamine, and every stimulus feels amplified 1,000 times. An innocent photo becomes a trigger. A casual conversation becomes a temptation. Your body is desperate for the dose you've always given it. But if you endure this phase, if you breathe deeply and let the wave pass without reacting, something changes. Your mind begins to clear. It's as if a fog that was always there starts to lift. You realize you've been living in a constant state of distraction, your attention always divided between what you were doing and what you were desiring. With a clear mind, you begin to see people completely differently. That woman you once could only see as an object of desire now appears as a complete human being. You notice the details: how she speaks, what she values, how she treats others, what makes her laugh. You discover that real connection is 1,000 times more satisfying than sexual fantasy, because it touches a part of you that's been asleep for years. Your energy changes too. That energy that was being burned away in obsessive mental loops is now available for real creation. You wake up with genuine motivation. Your projects start to move forward. Your goals stop being distant dreams and begin to materialize. Because you're finally investing your life force into construction, not destruction. But here's the part no one prepares you for. This transformation scares the people around you. Your friends who are still slaves to their own desires will mock you, call you a saint, say you're repressed. Women who are used to manipulating you through desire will lose their power over you and react with anger or disdain. You'll discover how many of your relationships were based on toxic complicity, not true friendship. And there are moments of relapse, moments when you fall back into old patterns and feel like you've lost all your progress. The difference now is that you can't fool yourself anymore. You feel the dissonance immediately. You feel how that behavior diminishes you, distances you from who you want to be. And that painful awareness is, in fact, a sign of growth. You can no longer live unconsciously. The process of sexual detox reveals something profound about human nature. We are not our impulses. You have desires, but you are not your desires. You have thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. There is an observer within you, a deeper consciousness that can choose how to respond to internal and external stimuli. Strengthening that observer is the path to real freedom. And real freedom doesn't mean the absence of desire. It means desire no longer controls you. You can feel attraction and choose not to act on it. You can recognize beauty without needing to possess it. You can appreciate without objectifying. That's the difference between a mature man and a boy trapped in an adult body. Conscious control over sexual energy, not neurotic suppression or impulsive surrender. There is a crucial moment in the journey of every man who decides to face his internal demons. A point of no return where everything you believed about masculinity, power, and pleasure collapses. And in that collapse, in that absolute chaos, you finally see the raw, naked truth. You were never free. You have always been a prisoner disguised as a conqueror. This moment usually comes when you hit rock bottom. Maybe it's after a relationship destroyed because you couldn't be faithful, not for lack of love, but because your mind was so conditioned to seek novelty that depth was frightening. Maybe it's when you realize you've spent years chasing fantasies, while real opportunities slipped through your fingers. Or when you finally admit that you can no longer feel genuine pleasure in anything because your reward system is so burnt out that only extreme stimuli elicit a response. In this moment of brutal clarity, you understand something devastating. Lust didn't give you power, it stole your potency. It didn't make you a conqueror, it made you a slave. It didn't make you more masculine, it castrated you emotionally. Every time you chose momentary impulse over lasting purpose, you betrayed yourself. And now you are paying the price in existential emptiness and an inability to form real connections. The scariest part of this revelation is realizing how much time you've lost. How much potential was wasted. How many better versions of yourself died before they could be born because you were too busy feeding an addiction that promised satisfaction but delivered only growing hunger. The pain of this awareness is almost unbearable. Because you can no longer blame anyone. You can no longer pretend you didn't know. Now you know, and the weight of that truth crushes. But it is precisely at this darkest point that real transformation becomes possible. Because you don't change while still clinging to comforting illusions. You change when the pain of remaining the same outweighs the fear of transformation. And when you reach that limit, when you truly decide that you will no longer live as a slave to your impulses, something fundamental shifts in your energy. The decision to abstain consciously is not renunciation, it is a reclamation of power. You are saying, I control my attention, my energy, my time. I choose where to invest my life force. I will no longer hand over command of my life to primitive neural circuits. I will no longer let hormones and habits determine my destiny. I am greater than my impulses. When you maintain this stance, when you navigate the first days, weeks and months of conscious abstinence, your brain literally begins to rebuild itself. Neuroplasticity is not theory, it is biological reality. The neural pathways associated with obsessive pleasure-seeking begin to weaken. New circuits start to form. Your ability to find satisfaction in simple things returns. You rediscover pleasure in deep conversation, in creating with your hands, in being present in a moment without planning the next one. But the deepest transformation occurs in how you relate to your own masculinity. You discover that real strength is not in how many women you can conquer, but in how many temptations you can transcend. True power is not doing what you want, it's wanting what you do. Genuine freedom is not the absence of limits, it's the ability to choose your own limits based on values, not impulses. And here something surprising happens. When you stop desperately seeking sexual connection, real connection begins to appear. Women sense the difference in your energy. You are no longer hunting, no longer projecting needy dependence disguised as confidence. You are whole, centered, present. And that is magnetically attractive in a way desperation never can be. Relationships begin to emerge from a completely different place. Not from lack, but from abundance. Not from compulsion, but from conscious choice. You meet someone and can see who they really are because your desire filters no longer distort everything. You can build real intimacy because you're not constantly thinking about the next physical level. You can give true love because you finally have something to give, not just needs to fulfill. Your professional life changes radically as well. That energy that was being drained in obsessive fantasies now fuels healthy ambition. You work with intense focus because your mind is no longer divided. Your projects progress because you have real discipline, not just empty intentions. Your financial potential explodes because you are finally investing in real growth, not immediate gratification. People around you notice the transformation, even without understanding exactly what changed. You carry a different presence. There is clarity in your eyes that wasn't there before. You speak with authority that comes from internal integrity, not external posturing. And those who are ready to evolve approach. Those still trapped in old patterns naturally drift away. But perhaps the most significant change is internal and invisible. You finally like who you are. Not in a narcissistic or arrogant way, but with genuine respect. Because now you live according to your values. Your actions reflect your intentions. You are no longer at war with yourself, saying one thing and doing another. There is coherence between who you say you are and how you truly live. This integrity creates inner peace that no amount of momentary pleasure ever provided. You wake up without shame for what you did yesterday. You go to bed without fear of who you are becoming. And in that peace, in that inner solidity, you discover something revolutionary. You don't need external validation because you validate yourself through your own choices. You don't need to prove your masculinity because you live it quietly every day. After crossing the desert of conscious abstinence, after facing your internal demons and rebuilding your relationship with desire, you finally understand what it means to be free. And freedom is not what they sold you. It is not doing everything you want. It is wanting only what builds you, not what destroys you. The most liberating truth you can discover is this: sexual energy is the most powerful force you possess. Not to be wasted, but to be directed. All great human achievements, all immortal works of art, all revolutionary inventions, came from men who learned to channel this primordial energy into creation, not consumption. When you master your desire, you are not repressing your nature. You are elevating your nature. You are transforming animal impulse into human purpose. You are taking the most potent raw material in the universe and shaping something that transcends the momentary. This is not sacrifice, it is alchemy. Think of the men you truly admire. Those who built empires, created legacies, transformed the world. They were not slaves to impulses. They were masters of themselves. They had iron discipline over where they invested attention and energy. They knew that every choice either brings you closer to greatness or drags you into mediocrity. And they chose greatness, not because it was easy, but because it was worthy. You are now on the same path. Every day you choose consciousness over compulsion, you are building the man you want to be. Every time you feel the impulse and take a deep breath instead of reacting, you are strengthening the muscle of self-discipline. Every moment you invest in real growth instead of empty gratification, you are creating a future worth living. But this journey never completely ends. You don't wake up one day permanently cured. Conscious abstinence is not a destination, it is daily practice. It is a renewed choice at every moment. It is constant vigilance over your thoughts, your habits, your exposures. Because the world will not stop bombarding you with stimuli. Society will not stop glorifying lust. Your old mental patterns will not disappear completely. The difference now is that you have tools. You have awareness. You have experience of living on both sides of this battle. You know the emptiness of slavery and the fullness of freedom. And when temptation comes, you can see through it. You can recognize the false promise, the fleeting pleasure followed by lasting guilt. And that gives you the power to choose differently. Relationships become spaces of mutual growth, not mutual use. You seek a partner who challenges you to evolve, not just excites you physically. You seek compatibility of values, not just sexual chemistry. You build intimacy based on real vulnerability, not performance. And when you find that, you discover that true connection is infinitely more satisfying than any fantasy ever was. Your career gains renewed purpose. You are no longer working just for money or status. You are building something that matters. You are using your talents to contribute, to create value, to leave the world better than you found it. And this sense of purpose fills you in a way empty pleasure never could. Your relationship with others changes fundamentally. You stop seeing women as objects of conquest and begin seeing them as complete human beings. You can have genuine friendships with them because you're no longer constantly calculating sexual opportunities. Your male friendships also improve because you are no longer competing on a superficial level of how many conquests you have. You compete on a higher level, who is building the most meaningful life. And something profound happens spiritually. When you master the most primitive force within you, when you prove that you can transcend basic instincts through conscious choice, you connect with something greater. Whatever your understanding of the divine or sacred, you feel aligned with a higher purpose. That your life has meaning beyond survival and reproduction. The final lesson is this: you were created for much more than chasing pleasure. You were made to build, to create, to love truly, to leave a legacy. But none of this is possible while you are a slave to your own desires. Real freedom begins when you decide that your values will guide your choices, not your impulses. And this freedom is available to any man willing to pay the price. The price is not comfort. It is not ease. The price is brutal honesty with yourself, daily discipline, and the courage to live against the current of a culture that glorifies weakness disguised as libertinism. But those who pay this price discover something extraordinary: a life lived with integrity, where your actions reflect your values, where you like who you see in the mirror, where you build something that matters, is the only life truly worth living. Everything else is merely existence in the guise of life. So the question remains: what kind of man do you want to be? The one controlled by impulses, or the one who controls his own energy? The one who seeks momentary pleasure, or the one who builds lasting satisfaction? The one who consumes, or the one who creates? The choice has always been yours. And it continues to be, every moment, every day. If this message resonated with you, if you are ready to begin your own journey of transformation, subscribe to the channel. Because the real work, the construction of the man you want to be, begins now.